righty, we are going live. We're going live. Let's make sure that the audio is coming through all nice and crispy on the other end. Otherwise, otherwise we're in trouble. Perfect. The audio is coming through beautifully. All right. Well, good evening, good morning, good day, wherever you are at. Hope that you are having a fantastic time, and thank you for joining at least me. Hopefully, more of us on not our usually scheduled night for live streams. I especially know that right now I'm missing the second episode of campaign 4 for Critical Role, but sacrifices must be made to talk about writing monsters, to talk about the amazing digital circus, and more. And Tyler Goodman, thank you so much for your very first comment here in the chat. So the Amazing Digital Circus has a beach episode. Impressed. Also, Glitch now has 16.7 million subs. Yeah, they just keep on growing. And a beach episode is a fantastic way to probably get more people. We shall see. I was definitely not expecting a beach episode, and yet that works out really well. For those of you who are not anime fans, one of the typical staples of like a long running story is that there must either be a beach episode or there must be a hot springs episode, and those are usually also the times where the story just gets really, really weird. So, I mean, that kind of works out well for the Amazing Digital Circus. Why not use a beach episode to really bring the weirdness home? So we'll just have to see. Say tomorrow is going to be the day of the big news, and we would cover it during a live stream then. But the reason why we will not be doing a live stream tomorrow is because I am going to a haunted corn maze with my family, and it's going to be grand. And there's no way that I'm going to ditch out on them early just to come hang out with you guys. I know, sorry about that, but family comes first, and plus also this haunted corn maze is amazing. And families coming together from all over the city, so it's going to be a big how to do. ISO's here. Murder Drones Season 2? No, sadly no. However, I find it very interesting that they are announcing more Murder Drones news because it's already public that the graphic novel has been fully funded and that they're going forward with that. So it makes me wonder what exactly we're going to get in terms of more murder drones. Are we going to get some special side stories? Is Liam going to announce that there's something special hidden in the graphic novel that wasn't in the show? Who knows? So I'm looking forward to that announcement tomorrow. But yeah, so let's see here. At the start of our live stream tonight, let me just say that the big goals I have for tonight, of course, are to do the writing lesson about how to write monsters. This one I hope is a lot of fun to do, because writing monsters is really, really cool and it's difficult yet surprisingly easy. It's difficult because of the work that goes into it, but what you're aiming to do with that work is not something that you should fear. Murder Drones shirts would be epic, though. Shorts. Murder Drones shorts. Oh, okay. At first, because he's had shirts and then shorts, ISO, I was thinking Murder Drones shorts. I don't know if I want to wear Murder Drones pants, but okay, well, you do you. But now, I get it now. Murder Drones shorts is in videos. Oh, could you imagine, though? Hey, guess what? You can now wear the absolute solver over your butt. Yeah, go to no, you're not going. You don't go to Hot Topic for that. You go to Spencer's for that kind of stuff. All right, so yeah, the writing lesson for writing monsters. I also want to talk a little bit about what we got with the Amazing Digital Circus leaks, and well, not necessarily a leak. It was made available to everyone at Comic-Con. It was thanks to the people who had their phones out that short got leaked to us, and then yeah, any other kinds of discussions that we wish to have before we end are free game. So let's see here. With that said, you know what? Let's just unless anyone's got uh, any sort of pushback to this, let's just dive into the Amazing Digital Circus and the very brief clip that we got from Comic-Con. So my nuts would appreciate that. All right, the Absolute Solver will lovingly cradle your doodleberries. All right, let me pull up the clip. And here we go. Hopefully it's not too loud. I should have already have lowered the volume a little bit so it doesn't blow out people's eardrums if you're listening in with AirPods. So here we go.
What a good day! Wow!
All right, so who wants to try Kane's magical changing move first?
I guess I'll give it a go.
They finally have a chance to canonize the changing
If
booth.
you ever need a sunburn, give me a call!
I don't want a sunburn.
Should have thought of that before I decided I hate you!
Don't interact with the sun. She's just like that.
Living in the desert, I can confirm.
Gangle, wait.
Potentially Jack's way out there, separate from the rest of the group. All right, I'm going to go back through again with this and talk about what we might have going on here. So already at the opening, we have a day at the beach. Because there's a title right there, I've already seen a lot of people say, okay, so this is something that Kane has created, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense because Kane has already brought up how he doesn't like creating stories and games that don't have any stakes, or at least from his perspective, don't have high stakes. I did not expect Gangle to be the most attractive. An awakening is happening. We must have more ribbon women in two-piece bathing suits. But so talking about a day at the beach, I think that this is just kind of like an opening credit deal. I actually do not expect that this is something that Kane himself actually made. I fully expect him to come in and be like, "What are you guys doing? Like, there's stuff to be done, adventures to be had." And they're like, "Well, we just, it's like, remember when you said that we could do whatever we wanted here in the Digital Circus? Well, we all want to have a beach day." And then maybe Kane then drops like Jaws or who knows what into this beach episode, and then just begins ruining stuff. I could see it happening, but we'll just have to see. If Kane, though, here's the thing: if Kane did come up with this day at the beach, yeah, sure, we can expect a sudden twist, but him just handing on over to the residents, to the players, a scenario, a game, a day that just seems like, guess what? You get to relax. You can have a fun day at the beach. That might actually hint at how he is breaking down, how some of the things that he has wanted to do, what his programming has told him to do, as he's deteriorating, as he's coming more to terms with whatever his situation in the circus is, that it could be that he's now going against what he believes is right. And while that might sound great for the players, this is the amazing digital circus. Everything has some kind of crazy twist. And it could very well be that them being at the beach and Kane's just like, yeah, sure, this is like a low stakes thing. Go ahead and have fun. That when something goes wrong, Kane won't come in and save them like he should. The protection is gone because in his mind, this is low stakes. And while that might sound like just another average day at the circus, that could prove to be pretty awful because Kane, as we have seen time again and again, he's the guy who's always able, with the snap of his fingers, to fix everything. If he's not there to stop everything or fix everything, that could then mean that the chaos and destruction that is wrought by whatever happens becomes more permanent. And that could then have some lasting consequences on the characters, especially someone like Jax, who we've seen is so close to abstracting. And again, we should not rule out that a character like Gangle is also very close to abstracting, because we've seen just how close she has gotten to losing it. So Bubble is the monster. Can you imagine that? Bird, as just this large bubble comes out of the water and sort of and just starts gobbling them up. Okay, certainly breaking down. There was an end scene last episode for a reason. Yes. Oh boy. Yeah. Things are definitely not going well within the circus. And again, I would say that if this is indeed Kane making an adventure for them, that's just a day at the beach, that is great reason to worry, because that means that Kane is not running the way that he should, which running the way that he should seems like it's detrimental to the characters, yet he's also the one who provides the protection for them. So like I can see that there's something could go horribly wrong for them. Shade is here. Hi everybody, great to have you here, Shade. All right, so moving on from that, the sun. Great to see the sun doing sun things. And again, as someone from the desert, I can absolutely empathize with the sun just hating you. And I guarantee that. I accidentally rewound that a little bit. I can guarantee that we're going to see this little changing room come into play in some future merch commercial. Probably not as something that you can buy, but I imagine that we're going to see the characters get sucked up into it and then come out as their beach selves to then be sold to the masses for millions of dollars. Yes. Kinger, just let's just go back here to appreciate. So Gangle in her two-piece, looking like she's actually having a good time. And let's actually point out something right here. She's not covering her face with one of her comedy masks. She's still crying. Yet we see her being happy. We've got character growth for Gangle. Hooray! That's awesome. That's really, really awesome. And it saddens me that I haven't actually seen anyone point this out yet. Maybe I haven't gone digging enough on the internet to see people point this out, but yeah, Gangle is not trying to hide her face in this scene. So I count that as character progression. The sun does hate me, IRL. It tried to kill me. The sun gives life to all of us, and then it always is trying to murder us at the same time. Maybe a Murder Drones video game for the Murder Drones news? Potentially. That would be very interesting. All right, and we then have Pomni and Ragatha in their swimsuits. Ragatha, woo, man, you are definitely going for the you're definitely going for the spicy stuff. So, Ragatha dressing, I guess, to impress. Kinger just enjoying life. Then, and of course, in typical anime fashion, if you're going to have a beach episode, you're going to have smacking the watermelon. Not quite Rummelpot laufen, but just as tasty. However, here's the thing. As someone who has been often to the beach, I don't know if I'd want to crush a watermelon at the beach. I don't want sand in my watermelon. But of course, the real gag here is that Jax gets his face put onto it. So even more oomph behind that hit. Get rid of that Jax. And there you have it. So, very, very, very small, short look into what we're getting in the next episode. The fact that it's a beach episode is surprising. The fact that it's a beach episode and that it's the Amazing Digital Circus should give people pause and make them realize things are about to really, really come off the rails. And we also just got to see a lot of great wholesomeness, a little bit of character development. Ragatha showing off a little too much stuff and fluff. And we'll see how it goes. I think tomorrow is when they will drop the news about when the next episode will air. And they are currently juggling 3 shows at the same time. It's a great sign for Glitch because that means that that means that they are doing financially well, that they can support multiple teams working on multiple shows at the same time. Glitch is on the up and up, and that is great to see. Murdrones news. Liam Vickers will come out of retirement in 50 years with a new series. 50 years later, LMAO. It's a new Atomatic. Murdrones unrelated. If they planned that far ahead, that would be amazing. But yeah, I think if I were a betting man, and if I were to say this is what I believe they will bring up in terms of Murdertrones tomorrow, my bet would be on Liam Vickers delivering side stories, hopefully about characters like Doll, that give us a little bit more insight into what happened within the show, and that either these will be shorts like ISO has put in the chat, or maybe come out as comics that people can purchase, that will be available once the graphic novel has hit the stores, has hit the presses, maybe a little bit earlier. But I think that what it's going to be is it really is going to be story related. The merchandise continues to sell well. Millions of views still are accruing on the show, which means that it continues to grow in popularity. It continues to make them money. So you would not just simply kill the goose that laid the golden egg. But the merch is there. Set hyping up, oh, we got a big Murdrones announcement. They know that people are going to be excited. And if it's just, hey, here, buy a new shirt, buy some shorts, or here's a new vinyl, there will be people who will be happy for that, but it won't be as satisfactory to a lot of the fans who've been looking really forward to some sort of Murdrones news. Will we see a season 2? I highly, highly doubt it. I think that Kevin and Luke would love to continue Murdrones if at all possible, but that all comes down to Liam, and I don't think that Liam is going to go that route. I think that he's right now enjoying the check that he got from Glitch to do his show. I think that he's still riding high the fact that he completed a project and that it's been so well received. So we'll just have to see. Lars, I have a question. Did you watch SSTWL? And if you did, and if you do not know what that is Liam's old channel. SSTWL. I can only think of Cliffside and Internecian Cube from Liam, and then of course some of his Wendigo stuff. So the answer is no. Do not know it then. And then let's see here. Obviously for the Gaslight District, they're going to be announcing when the next episode comes out. They've had plenty of time to work on it. It's been greenlit now for a while, and again because they can now have multiple teams working on these shows at the same time, that means that, at least I would guess, that the Gaslight District is going to come out on a good regular schedule. Regular and heavy quotation marks for indie animation, but just meaning that they are going forward with it. I have a question. Do you like the circus members' beach designs? I do. Simple, but effective. It gives me a kind of 1940s, 1950s kind of vibe, which would be very interesting to see that particular element explored. I don't think it will be. And as far as the big like mystery announcement, a lot of people are saying that's probably going to be Knights of Guinevere. I think that it probably will be Knights of Guinevere that they announce, saying, yeah, we're greenlighting it. Woohoo! Which would actually be sooner than I expected. And if that's the case, that means that the merchandise sales went very, very well for Knights of Guinevere, because just based off of how many views it's gotten and at about the rate it probably earned, there is no way that the views alone have met the 20% earnings threshold that Glitch has set for all of their shows. So if Knights of Guinevere is greenlit, if that's the big announcement, then that means that their sales for the show went through the roof, which is, again, just very great for them, very great for Dana if that's the case. If it's not, that means that Knights of Guinevere is slowly slogging its way to a profitable point where they can then properly greenlight the show. Shade says the beginning wholesome, the middle horrifying, the end depressing. This is my prediction for the episode. Yeah, probably that's the way that the Amazing Digital Circus's next episode is going to run. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to when we finally get the chance to see it. Even though it actually hasn't been all that long since the last episode of the Amazing Digital Circus, I feel starved for the next installments. I'm just excited to see where we go next. So, with that being said, that's pretty much my thoughts on the on what, at least what I know for Glitch at the moment. If Knights of Guinevere isn't being announced and we still have this big uber super cool secret announcement, that's coming to light, the only thing that I can think of that would warrant this kind of an unveiling. There we go. Get the "and" and the unveiling in there. Is that is that they're probably going to announce that they've got some sort of new deal, either again with a company like Netflix or Amazon for one of their projects, or they are announcing probably something really cool in connection with another company, kind of like when they had their restaurant in Japan right before episode 4, where they just took over a restaurant for a little while and you got a chance to go and be a part of episode 4 before episode 4 even released. I could see them doing something like that. Like, hey guys, we've got this other cool thing where we are bringing one of our shows into the real world. It's going to be awesome. You can interact with it. That would be the only other thing I could think of if we are not getting Knights of Guinevere greenlit by tomorrow. Dora says the Amazing Digital Circus got leaked. Now, not the episode. We got a clip of the episode revealed because people, of course, took video of it with their cell phones while at Comic-Con. It was not officially released by Glitch, so therefore we can call it a leak. Shade, if we get season 2, what did you think the story will be? I will take the Murder Drones universe next. If we get a second season of Murder Drones, what I would say is that we would likely get Liam elaborating on whatever the ending was to the show and exploring the consequences of dealing with Absolute Solver. Because Absolute Solver was not revealed to be just, as I had predicted it would be, this massive entity with like different avatars and whatnot around the universe as it reached from place to place. The ending to Murder Drone says very clearly that Uzi consumed Absolute Solver itself, and then it's left up to interpretation if she's dead, if she won, what was the cost, what state she's in. And that's one of the reasons why I think Liam would be very, very hesitant to even do a season 2, because it would give answers to a story where I don't think he wants to give the answers, because that then takes away from the mystery and the fun of how Murder Drones ended, which, as we've discussed before, Murder Drones' ending was pretty messy. There was a lot of stuff left on the cutting room floor that shouldn't have been. But the ending as it was, revolving around Uzi, N, and Absolute Solver, was very well delivered. Continuing it on from that point removes the question, the air of mystery and of horror that surrounds the ending when you stop to think about it, which would undo the eldritch fright, which you never want to do with a Lovecraftian story. The moment that you take away the fear out of a Lovecraftian story, it really loses its appeal, and it just becomes a strange veneer. And not a whole lot of people come to Lovecraft for the aesthetic. They come to Lovecraft for that eerie, creepy feeling that they cannot shake. So that's so again, if he comes back to do Murder Drones, he basically has to pick up again from where he left off. If he doesn't, it would feel very, very disconnected from the show as it's already been established. And he could lose the audience that way. It would be a very dangerous move. And it's one that I think a lot of fans would not like. So I don't see it happening. If there is a second season, it has to build off of the ending. And if it builds off the ending, he has to take it even more cosmic. Otherwise, it just won't work. Because he already went so big. And at the same time, a lot of the personal stories that are left to be wrapped up are ones that should have been wrapped up in season 1. It'd be very weird to branch those out into season 2. It would be messy. It would be very, very messy. So yeah, no Murder Drones season 2. I don't see it happening. I says the Murder Drones news will just be Liam. I'm sick of all these nonsense theories. Here's the story and all the lore, and actually the ending is the most coherent part of it. All things considered. That would be an amazing announcement. Shay says the full name Scary Story Time with Liam. Define the majority of his original stories in the writing and YouTube search. All the SSTW Scary Story Time with Liam in order playlist. You'll get the majority of them in the playlist. Guys, imagine the Knights of Guinevere on Disney. Isn't it crazy? That would be insane. Disney will never do it because Disney hates Dana. I don't see Disney ever wanting to do business with her again, which is why the connected cartoon universe will sadly never happen. And that's really depressing to me. But so it goes. Disney controls all those shows. I do not. Disney absolutely butchered the goose that could have laid the golden egg. And so they just must continue to suffer as they've been doing now for years. Darkest Daydreams. Also writing monsters. Yet another excuse to yap about my monster OCs. I made a short story for my class I'm currently taking. Awesome. That's awesome to hear, Dorcas. So, with all that out of the way for Glitch and for the Amazing Digital Circus, let me quickly take a drink of water and let's dive into the writing lesson. Let's have some fun with that. Good stuff. Stay hydrated. Bloodborne is a Lovecraft story, but you beat the horror. No one ever said that you can't beat a Lovecraftian horror. Not at all. It's rather that Lovecraftian horrors leave you thoroughly unsettled the more you think about it, which is the fear. It's not the fear, but that's the appeal to a Lovecraftian horror, that the more you think about it, the more terrifying it becomes. because it truly embraces the fear of the unknown, that what you don't know is horrifying, and should you ever know it, it becomes so much worse. So, with that being said, oh, I have you guys right there at the very end. Never mind. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. All right. How to write monsters. Yay, with a cute little monster right up there at front. Our goal for tonight with this writing lesson is learn how to write monsters into your stories. It's surprisingly easy because, well, it really just comes down to knowing your monster. Because everyone's stories is going to be different, and the way people employ monsters will always be different. That's absolutely fine. There is no one or wrong. There's no one right way, or even really a wrong way to write monsters, so long as you know what you're doing with that monster. And that's a very important distinction, because monsters themselves are interesting, engaging on their own. It just comes down to how you use them, but also how you understand them. So that is where a lot of the work goes is into understanding these monsters, because as you understand them, you better know how to apply them to a story. Monster movies and monster books that don't land well are not usually because the monster was awful, but because of how the monster was employed. And many times the monster is employed poorly because the creators did not understand their own creation. So, with that said, we're going to have some fun working on this together. Because not only am I going to give you guys my breakdown, my lesson about what you should think about, what you should know when it comes to creating your own monsters, we're then going to break down some other stories, and then we are going to work on creating your monsters. I love writing monsters. I love my monsters. Drangles, scrapers, chain spiders, and blood demons, mutated chain spiders. I just love the creativity of it. Fantastic. You should, because monsters they're just so much fun. There are different types of monsters in mythology and folklore. Yes, exactly. And you should know about them. Now, monsters are all about the rules. This is so very, very important. And this is where a lot of first-time writers really fall apart when it comes to writing horror, because they do not stick to the rules. Allow me to explain why this is so important. Because ever since ancient times, people have associated monsters with fears. And the reason why people have those fears, why they fear the unknown or why they fear the consequences of doing something that they're not supposed to, all comes around to, well, okay, did you meet certain criteria? Have you broken certain rules? Did you do a certain sequence of events that would lead to this bad thing happening? Well, that you did. Okay, you've incurred the wrath of this particular monster. You've invited this monster into your life. You've done something that has allowed a monster to curse you or to stalk you or to harm you or one of your loved ones. And this has carried on over to today. People associate monsters with rules. If you don't believe me about that, you've not been paying attention to any horror movie, horror book, or even to folklore. Because there's always rules. The rules make sense of the how and the why. The how the monster operates and why they operate the way that they do. And that even holds true for things like cosmic and Lovecraftian horror. There's always rules. Now then, because that's the case, you must know the rules. You must know why the creature does what it does, how it does what it does, and you build up from there. But an important thing, and this actually plays into something like a Lovecraftian horror, is that you don't always have to tell what all the rules are. Remember from last week, I talked about the difference between American and Japanese horror stories. One of the biggest differences between American and Japanese horror stories is that in Japanese horror stories, the moment that you break the rules or the moment that you incur bad karma, you are screwed. And because most people don't know the rules going into this encounter with a ghost or a demon or a monster, that's why in Japanese stories, they will most likely die. It's almost impossible to survive a Japanese horror story when it really comes after you, because the rules must be obeyed. And if you break them, the consequences will always follow. And so you want to know your rules in Japanese in Japanese horror stories. You normally don't know the rules until it's too late. Shade says, I disagree. Example, ghouls and demons in Islam, in the majority of time, they just attack you, no reason, no rule. Now then, Shade, again, I'm going to push back. I'm honestly going to push back against that. Because the fear of those things attacking comes from somewhere. You need to go back and have a look at, why do those things exist within a particular religion, or within a particular culture, or within a particular region? The fear of demons, for instance, or ghouls, which is shared by multiple religions and by the different denominations of those religions, is tied into trying to understand why bad things happen to good people, why really bad things happen to people who have done wrongly, and to better emphasize the difference between good and evil. And these monsters, these demons, these spooky tales are born out of our human desire to better explain and to make sense of those ideas. And so, if ghouls or demons just come and attack people, as you say, for no rhyme or reason, chances are, if when you go back and actually look again fully at what the story is telling you, there's a very good reason why it is happening. And again, this goes for all cultures, all religions, all over the world. Once you start diving in, a lot of American horror storytelling actually gets really silly and dumb because, again, the authors very rarely understand these creatures. There's a lot of American horror stories where, for instance, the Wendigo is probably one of the saddest examples of this. People are like, Wendigos, they're born from cannibalism. Yay! So I'm just going to have this weird deer thingy that was once a human who ate another human, and Wendigo. That's not a Wendigo. Not even close. Wendigos are born from something else entirely. Actually, something way creepier, which can be manifested in cannibalism, which is the worst form of the greed and the loss of humanity, as per what the Native Americans envisioned. And what a Wendigo then becomes is not just some weird antlered beast that goes around eating other people. It becomes something way darker, way deadlier, and which is why within most Native American cultures who believe in something like the Wendigo, if one exists, you don't even go looking for it, because you are almost guaranteed to lose. Only the best of shamans should ever, if necessary, deal with something like a Wendigo, because according to some lore, and this is where we're actually going to get into this, you need to do your research, because according to some tribes, only other shamans could have become Wendigo. And so it would require a shaman to take on a Wendigo. Or if it was a normal person who became a Wendigo, they're so lost, they're so dark, they're so vile, so evil, that it requires someone who is so good and so in touch with the gods and with nature that they could take on something so unnatural. And where does this come from? Where does this fear come from? This fear comes from a long tradition of people trying to make sense of people who did wicked things, of what horrible things people did millennia ago due to famine, to long winters, or to horrible summers. Things that transformed people, made them desperate, and led desperate people to do horrible things. And so that is where this comes from. Now then, that is if you take a completely secular look. If you are completely completely sold into a particular religion or into a particular cultural worldview, then these things are very real, and even then, they are very real for a good reason. Not just something that can be explained away by human logic, but they have their origins in something very important to your belief and to your culture. And if you better understand it, you better understand how they work. Stormcrow says, "Hail, Master. Yes, Master Lars here. I do have a master's degree. Monster talk, my favorite kind of talk. In case it hasn't been asked, how do you develop a psychological monster?" We will talk about that. Put a pin into the psychological monster there, Stormcrow. Shay says, like an example, original ghouls like Genie and how they attack people, they just like women in secluded places like graveyards. Or other like that, when you try to come closer, they kill you. Shade, right there, you've already answered it. Why should people fear something like the Genie right there? So you said if a woman is secluded. Oh, bad things can happen to women. Somewhere down the line, there was something horrible that happened to women alone. People were like, do not go out alone, fair maiden, because you will be attacked by the jinn. Or if you went to a place you're not supposed to go to, like a graveyard, which can be considered unclean, why then would something bad happen to you if you're going to show honor to your lost ancestors? Well, there's something bad there. It's this horrible, vile thing that makes a mockery of the dead. Don't go there. There's this monster. There's this demon. There's this jinn, or whatever else you might want to give it a name to. And there are, well beyond Gene, there's way more interesting creatures out of Middle Eastern cultures. If you want some excellent examples of some of those ghost stories put into practice, I would highly recommend checking out The Smoke Pits, which is a series done by a military veteran who had a whole bunch of really creepy experiences during his military tours when he was on active duty, and actually, then actually got a whole bunch of other veterans together to share all of their crazy stories. And if you want to have a restless sleep some night, you listen to those stories. They are haunting. Holy cow. Fabia, I suppose for me, even if my monsters tend to more so be like animals, people, or other animals with people qualities, they may not seem to have rules due to being more realistic. But some of these traits could be used like weaknesses. For example, they have quote unquote rules the same way of fighting a real person or animal does. Fighting a real person or animal does. Well, again, there should always be rules to your monsters, because the moment that you strip a monster of its rules, you actually lose the reason to fear them. Because if a monster is just omnipresent for whatever reason, can do awful things for whatever reason, it does any variety of awful things for whatever reason, there's no rhyme, there's no reason to it, there's no logic behind it, people actually check out. They no longer feel afraid because there's no reason to hope. The moment that you have no reason to hope, there is no reason to fear. And that's very important. Where there is no hope, there is no reason to fear. When you're just in despair, you don't care. In fact, the monster coming after you, you're like, thank you. Just take me already. And if a horror becomes despondent, people cease to engage with it. Now, you can have some interesting stuff with a horror story where a character is despondent because they are living with a curse or with a monster or what have you, and then someone else intrudes on that situation, tries to help out. The despondent character either begins to feel hope or tries to warn the other person saying, don't get involved, bad things are going to happen. So either it's the hope of the despondent person that now generates the fear, or the naive person whose hope is about to be crushed because they have intruded, which then creates the fear. This is why you must have rules. Remove the rules, and there ceases to be a reason to care. That is something that, again, first-time creators, people who are just getting into horror, don't really understand. I even myself, I remember when I first had these conversations, I'm like, well, what it like, because I was like, because I'm the kind of writer, I like breaking rules. I like pushing boundaries. I like doing weird stuff. Don't believe me? Read my book, Monarch Mercenaries. It defies genre. Yet, the moment you remove rules from a horror story, it ceases to have meaning. Because anything can happen. It doesn't matter. Why should I care? And you literally cannot. It's the same exact thing for for anyone who's actually bothered to critically read the Game of Thrones series, the Song of Ice and Fire. You cease caring about almost every character because you know it doesn't matter. George R.R. Martin has already squashed his most interesting plot lines early on. So many of the best characters, so many of the most interesting characters are already dead. As a result, why should you care? Honestly, why should you care? You really don't. You don't because it doesn't matter. It's so nihilistic, and it's nihilistic without a purpose. Japanese horror can get away with the nihilism because it is teaching you broke the rules, you've got bad karma, bad things come your way. All right. Oh, you confused it. The ghoul dresses the woman to attract the people. See, Shade, you've already, once again, you now have the how. You've got a rule. And when you dig in, you figure out why that how exists. So there are, again, the rules. Stormcrow, would it be cheating if I use real life people for monster inspiration? I mean, a joke about skin changes, right? But Ed Gein literally made skin suits out of women. Yikes. But yeah, real life people have inspired have inspired all different kinds of monsters and horror stories. The one that immediately jumps to my mind, just because I recently watched an interview with the director and writer for Weapons, brought it on up about how his experience with his parents helped to create the situation and the villain, the monster of the movie Weapons. I'm Omega. Hey, I'm here. Woohoo! I'm here. I kind of like monsters with a process like the nightmares from Kamen Rider Zets, where they must fulfill a host's wish a certain number of times. They can take over the body of their host. Very interesting, and I do like that rule. Fabio, somehow everyone you know died. What? Yes, Invincible Monster kills both out of nowhere. 2, reader, cool story, bro. Cool story, bro. Yes, flat face. Exactly. Shay says, I mean, Genie kind of considered monsters, example, like not all of them bad. In some Genie tribes, they follow the Abraham religion. Some of them are Christians, some Jews, some Muslims. I'm always fascinated between the connection of blacksmiths and poets to Genie. The word crazy in Arabic used to mean business by Genie. Very interesting. Could we consider curses and Jujutsu Kaisen monsters, and do you consider them good monsters? The curses in Jujutsu Kaisen are absolutely monsters. Are they good monsters? Yeah, I enjoy them. They work as monsters. I'm going to make another example is the Dead Man from Kamen Rider Revice, where they are the inner demons of people which could manifest through V-stamps, series gimmick, and can merge with the host to be more powerful. All right. Fantastic. I like this. I like you guys are thinking about this. You're bringing up monsters because that's going to be important for the end of this lesson. Now then, coming back to again, you must know the rules. You don't always have to list out all the rules in your story. Depends on what you're doing. Something to consider. The more people know about the monster, the less scary that monster becomes. There are very, very few monsters that are able to maintain their aura of spookiness after being revealed and after all of their rules being explained. There's only a handful of them. It can happen, but that requires a lot of work on the part of the writer to make sure that that monster continues to be scary through its actions and not just through the mystery cloaking it, which again, for some monsters, just does not work. Like the movie Predator, for instance. Predator is fun, a fun adventure story. It's beautifully gory and all that stuff. There's some good jump scares, but the moment you begin to understand what the Predator is, and as more lore comes to you, you realize that every Predator movie that you go to see from that point on, you're just going to watch the glorious kill count and how it gets racked up, because the Predator is just not scary at this point. So one of the things to consider when writing your horror story is that it's far better to show the rules in action rather than to outright explain them. There are times to outright explain the rules of your monster, but it is far more effective, especially to maintaining the aura of spookiness, to show the rules in action. Now then, do your research. So, whether you are coming up with your own monster or you are recycling one that's already been created by someone else, you need to do your research and figure out a few important details that will allow you to establish the rules by which your monster will act. So you have to understand the creature's origins, its driving desires, its modus operandi, which means how it acts, and how people deal with that creature. So those are your 4 things. You have those 4 things that will allow you to start developing the rules. Once you have the rules, you can go ahead and you can start writing that monster however you want into your story. So long as you maintain your rules, it will very likely work. Shade says, another example, the parasites from Design. They are truly scary. You think you know someone, now they are possessed by a monster and just a dead corpse. Remnants of the Thing. I think I remember it. They put the demons inside the pigs. I think I remember a horror story about a biblical story, a man named Legion with 1,000 demons possessing him. Yes, and in the biblical account, Jesus then commands the legion to enter into the swine, and the swine then drown themselves in the sea. Which I just have to say it's always been confusing to me that for that time and that region, for people who would consider pigs to be unclean, why you have swine herds. I don't know. I honestly don't know. But the story comes across one way or the other. And there are definitely some stories that have been built around the idea of Legion. There was a B horror movie like over a decade ago about this woman who is supposed to give birth to the Antichrist. You've got people who are trying to prevent it from happening, and the demons that are after her are all part of one entity, being Legion. Again, B-rated horror movie, did not go over very well with people, but an example again of people taking monsters or demons that have already been pre-established and trying to use them in new and inventive ways. Fabio, been unsure how my villain, who does destroy everything, would go. Now, I use the fact as thinking doesn't make sense as a way automatic systems that contribute to make that world build someone with faulty programming. He has an end goal to destroy everything. He sort of makes sense sometimes, but even if it's sometimes he could be convinced otherwise, or even not sometimes, even if it seems he could be convinced otherwise, his actions remain villainous. Unlike someone stubborn, he just continues with the directive without remorse. So just kind of an inevitable villain. And I've talked about inevitable villains before, which are just fun. The unrelenting horror and evil that just keeps on marching. And it's a question of how do you stop this from continuing. Star Drop Mellow is here. Great to have you here. So again, in order to start building the rules for your monsters, you need to understand the origins, the driving desires, the modus operandi, which again means how it operates, and how people deal with it. So we're going to break down an example together, and then I'm going to ask you guys to start breaking down 2 other stories to better understand the monsters. And let's see what you guys can come up with. Shade says, I mean, natural things will make mistakes. Many mythologies, a builder. The idea of the world system is not perfect. Teleguman says, like Steppenwolf from Zack Snyder's Justice League. He just wants to destroy the Earth so he can get back home. Yes, Steppenwolf. What a character. All right, so here's our example to help get us down the right path of understanding. Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. Great movie. If you haven't seen it, absolutely watch it. And I am kind of spoiling things, I guess, if you haven't already seen this movie. Still fun, though. So, our monsters, the werecats, their origins. The werecats are survivors of a religious group that worshipped a cat god before getting massacred by pirates. They prayed for revenge and were cursed into becoming werecats. Their driving desires, revenge, and immortality. Those are the 2 things that drive all of their actions. Their modus operandi. They are immortal, but that is on condition of them offering souls to be drained during the harvest moon. If they cannot drain souls, they lose. They will die. So this means then that in order for them to continue their cycle of revenge and to maintain immortality, they must lure victims to their plantation every year for a sacrifice. And they employ the magic of voodoo in order to make that happen. How do you deal with them? Well, they're pretty strong monsters. If you don't avoid them and you're forced to deal with them, you have to find some kind of way of preventing them from completing their sacrifices. That is the only known weakness to these creatures. So there you have it. We have our origins for the werecats. We have their driving desires. We have their modus operandi. And we have how you deal with them. Darkest Daydreams. Nope, no thank you. What, the werecats? The werecats are spooking out? Hey, great movie. Be a little scared. I remember the first time I watched Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, which I was a kid. I was scared. Even when I watched it later on as an adult, I'm like, ooh, that still gives me like a little bit of a chill. It's really well done. All right, so the Jews herded pigs not to eat, but to sell to the Gentiles to eat, to answer your earlier question. Well, thank you, ISO. Thank you for answering that question to me. Say that's good to know. And what a fantastic entrepreneurial approach. I might not eat these things. I know you guys will. And we got a lot of junk that we can just feed to these swine. So, bearing this in mind, origins, driving desires, modus operandi, and how to deal with them, I want you guys now in the chat to break down Dracula. It's not as easy as you might think. So, for Dracula, we want origins, driving desires, modus operandi, and how to deal with him. Say, this is what I want you guys to do. Break it on down. If you need to look it up, A-okay. Look it up and don't just be all like, I'm just gonna throw some stuff on out there. Lars, which Dracula could you at least tell us which one to break down? The answer is no. The answer is no. I am not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you which one. And already that should get your minds, that should get the gears in your minds whirling. So Dark State Dream says garlic flowers, not garlic. We're not doing any sort of processed garlic. We're not doing any garlic cloves, and we're doing garlic flowers. We're going to make sure that aroma permeates the room and makes Dracula sneeze. Yeah, I have a good reason as to why I'm not telling you exactly which Dracula, and we'll get more into that down the road. I know it's kind of horrible right after so easily breaking down something that anyone could easily look up, the werecats from Scooby-Doo. I'm now throwing something big at you. But wait, there will be more. And so I do encourage look up different approaches to Dracula. I will be very, very impressed if anyone goes down the route of the librarian's take on Dracula from the show The Librarian. Oh, it was so good. That was a great series of movies, and that was a great show as well. That got spun off of it. Rip Lucy Westerna, my mom was an idiot. Wait, what? Oh, her mom was an idiot. Okay. At first I read that my mom, and I'm like, Dorcas, are we all okay here? All right. Rip Lucy Westerna, her mom was an idiot. All right. Fabio heard that he was basically the OG hurt by the sun vampire. Shade says original Dracula origin unknown. The goal is going to England to psych more blood from people, and how to deal with him, use stake in the heart. Okay. ISO Dracula, the goth bloodsucker whose motive is to suck blood. You kill him by not letting him suck blood. Fabio, wait, is his origin well known? Am I out of the loop? Star Drop Mellow, cool. I'm going to say this. If you guys actually don't know the origins to Dracula, we are going to have to do a history lesson. We're going to have ourselves a serious history lesson. Because, the vampire. The vampire as a monster is way scarier than most fiction actually allows it to be. Because if you follow the old rules for vampires, they're rough. They are so stinking hard to kill, and they bring devastation like none other. The movie Van Helsing with Hugh Jackman actually is one of the better, more lore accurate depictions of what vampires can do. It's not totally true to Eastern European lore and culture, but it is actually one of the more accurate ones. What people think of when they think of Dracula, at least through Bram Stoker, was a lot of Bram Stoker just coming up with stuff. Lars, are you talking about in book Dracula, or the real Dracula, or the Irish author who put in book the name The Vampire? The origin of Dracula was Vlad III, right? Yes, Vlad the Impaler. Vlad the Impaler, whose head was eventually cut off, and everyone freaked out because they weren't sure if they actually had gotten rid of him just right. Because in Eastern European lore, if there's any reason for the person who died to feel like their life's work was not yet completed, they can still return as a vampire. They do not need to be bitten. They do not need to be cursed. They can come back as a vampire if their own soul was in such a state of unrest and they are not properly put into the grave. Which is one of the reasons why he was beheaded, was as a way of trying to make sure that he wouldn't come back. Fun fact, there's a mass graveyard in Poland from hundreds of years ago where a lot of the corpses were rigged with blades across their necks. So that way, if they tried to get up afterwards, it would behead them in the process of them trying to get out of the grave. Others had like holy spikes driven into them to impale them into the coffin in order to prevent them from ripping themselves on out, because they were so terrified that one vampire had gotten into the graveyard and by so being there had caused all the other corpses to become vampires, which is one of the powers of vampires, that vampires can infect the dead with their mere presence and transform all of them into vampires. Now, the historical origins for Dracula are Vlad III, Vlad the Impaler, the son of the dragon, hence Dracula. So, there you have the historical origin, but as has been pointed out by other people, we have that Dracula is just some ancient bloodsucker who knows where he came from. You could also have that Dracula was actually at one point Judas Iscariot. That's actually one take on Dracula. I think there's even a take on Dracula that he might be Cain. Depending, like that's not one of the more popular ones, but that's some takes. You then have some say he's the devil. He could be the devil. In other cases, he was either Vlad the Impaler or he was another person, just happened to be named Dracula, who made a deal with the devil in order to keep on fighting. If you watch Dracula Origins, it's that Vlad the Impaler makes a deal with another dragon, with another vampire to then become a vampire. So there's all these different takes. There's all these different origins. Well, why does it matter? It matters because the origin that you give someone like Dracula will begin to dictate the powers that he has. In the origins of Dracula, where he has made a deal with the devil in order to continue on, that's actually where Dracula has his most powers. Because he's been empowered by ultimate evil to do whatever he needs to do in order to stay alive. And so he can transform, he can control werewolves, he can control the dead, he can hypnotize people, he can turn himself into a bat, he can become invisible, he can turn himself into mist, and so forth. So that's one of the more powerful versions of Dracula. If you go with a version of Dracula where it's just Vlad the Impaler who just refuses to die, he's a being consumed by unquenchable revenge, and he's a blight upon the land. He's just this unnatural thing that must somehow be purged in the most holy and balancing way possible. If he happens to be just some dude who was cursed or was transformed by yet a more ancient vampire, usually then he's actually not so magical. He's just very powerful in terms of speed and strength and wisdom because he's normally lived so long. Tyler Goodman asks, how about Nosferatu? Nosferatu is not Dracula. Nosferatu, or the vampire who, in the story of Nosferatu, Count Orlok, is a being who became cursed by seeking out unnatural powers and his desire to be immortal, which goes against the natural order. As such, he became something that could then be unnatural, could be a blight on good, wholesome life. And his powers are then derived, not his powers are derived from, but his powers then match whatever he needs to be able to do in order to steal goodness and life away from other people. Which is why, for anyone who's watched Nosferatu, Nosferatu has to be destroyed in a ritual by the girl, because she is the most pure, she is the most selfless, which is an antithesis to Count Orlok, and allows her then to bind him in a situation where he will be defeated by something good and holy, such as the sun, which is the ultimate sign of life. So Fabio, made by systems while the world's creator was too lazy to fix coding errors. Destroys. Okay, so you're talking about your own monster. I got it right there. Not Dracula in this case. Do you destroy it? So his driving desire is to destroy everything. His modus operandi is to search for the best way to destroy the world. If an artifact can do it, bingo. Number 4, how do you deal with it? Be smarter and stronger. LOL. Yeah, easy. ISO. Rah, rah, Rasputin, lover of the Russian queen. Shade says, every time I heard Navarro, I'm thinking of Navarra Azad. I do not know Navarra Azad. At least it's not immediately clicking with me, so unfortunately I can't comment on that. I know success ain't written in stone, but since I don't fully know, I'll ask if my villain follows the rules good. So you gave me the rules there, Fabio, and yeah, in basic terms, at least that's what you need to know. And once you know those things, and you should elaborate on that more, you can then far more firmly build the rules that will govern how your villain / monster acts within the story and how he can be dealt with. Which again, you don't have to reveal all those rules. You especially if you're trying to maintain that aura of spookiness. But you need to still have those rules. You need to know how it works, and then allow your story to show those rules in action. So Shade says, I have an idea for defeating him. Trick him to believe a very impossible way to destroy the world, but you think is easy. You just got to dig your way to the center of the earth and then eat it. All right. So from the convoluted answers that we've all gotten here, I think you guys can already see maybe where, like as I said, it's easy enough to say it's easy enough to write a monster once you have those details of its origins, its driving desires, its modus operandi, and how you deal with it. But let's say you take an existing creature like Dracula. There's so many different backstories to Dracula. There's so many interpretations of Dracula. If you wish to use Dracula in a story, how are you going to use him? Are you going to follow something that someone else has already done? If so, you need to understand it. Or if you're going to come up with new rules and a new origin for him, you need to understand those and then abide by them. Because people, for instance, come into Dracula and they already have preconceived notions, which is why any number of genuinely good Dracula stories might not jive well with everyone, because everyone knows a different origin of Dracula, and they have one that they feel like is the best. And your job as a writer, if you use a creature like Dracula, or if you use Frankenstein's monster, or you use a golem, or you use whatever, if you use one that's well established, and you want to do something different, you have to then be very clear, this is my take on the creature. This is how my interpretation of the creature works. These are my rules. And if you're not firm about that, you will lose your audience. Because it will not then jive if you're not clear. If you're not clear on your rules, if you're not clear on how you're using your interpretation of this creature, it will not jive with what they already know, and they will cease to engage with the story. Which is one of the reasons why it's actually in many ways more fun and rewarding to go with either a completely new creature or one that is far less well known. So, example, moving on, Absolute Solver. Now then, let's see what you guys can do, because I know most of you have seen Murder Drone's Absolute Solver. I need its origins, its driving desires, its modus operandi, and how to deal with it. Which again might seem very straightforward. And we'll see what you guys think once you start answering the prompt. Let me also then take a chance to then catch up here with what Fabio said. The thing about writing a monster who wins is you have to make it believable that everyone would lose. My characters seem pretty powerful, and I want to make the villain seem smart despite the coding errors in his mind. Well, absolutely. This is in a different realm, but along the same lines of thinking for your creature, Fabio, is someone like Hannibal Lecter. Hannibal Lecter is insanely intelligent. The thing, though, is that he's insane. His reasonings for doing what he does, and his sanctimonious way of being above it all, and being so refined despite being a brutal murderer and cannibal, it's very clear that this guy is not right in the head. Something is broken. He's incredibly intelligent. And if you're going to go up against Hannibal Lecter, you must bring your A game and you must go scorched earth on him, because if you give him an inch, he will kill you. So that's the danger of dealing with a genius like Hannibal Lecter. But Hannibal Lecter is a very flawed, very wrong character. So you can balance that. Then Shade says, example, like in Faith, Dracula, just a normal guy, but thing to be summoned as a heroic spirit. He became a vampire, and the reason why, because people believe he was a vampire, he became one. He hates this very much, for wish for the Holy Grail is to remove this legend from history for being a vampire. All right. So there we have new rules for Dracula. Or I say a new origin and desire for Dracula, which then allows you to start building the rules for this new interpretation. So Star Jamel says, a killer eating AI that uses a human girl's body as a vessel. All right. So this is one of the things that's left open because this is a Lovecraftian horror. Is Absolute Solver just an AI gone very rogue and somehow accumulated cosmic powers? Or has it always been a cosmic entity that then latched onto an AI and then assimilated it? Like, as we see, Absolute Solver constantly assimilates its hosts and incorporates aspects of its host into itself. An interesting question. Was it always an AI? Could have been. Liam did not give us the answer there, but I think that that's a good starting place. Star Drop Mellow as far as its origins. Now again, we need its driving desires, its modus operandi, and how do you deal with it? Then Shade says a discarded drone been sent a message by the Absolute Solver and the desire. Destroy intelligent life and how to deal with it, devour the heart, or use another solver user. All right. So we have its driving it. So we have that it is a discarded drone, potentially is the case. Its driving desire is to destroy intelligent life, and not just intelligent life. This thing eats planets. Now then, we haven't yet dealt with its modus operandi. How does it go about doing that? How you deal with it? You either have to devour its heart, like we see Uzi do, or like again with what Uzi and Dull do, you use its own powers against it if you've been infected by the Absolute Solver strain. Bobby, weird that I had a villain way before watching all of Murder Drones. This coding error thing seems reminiscent of Sin. Zombie Drone speaks broken, but well, the series shows how she was no pushover. So it's like Smaug from Dark Souls was based off of Hannibal Lecter. That was my theory. Why does the Solver use the null void so much? Maybe it came from the void. Maybe it is the void. Yeah, in it. So something I want to highlight here, and this is an element of the Lovecraftian aspect of Murder Drones. Liam Vickers did not tell us everything. We do not know Absolute Solver's origins. We do not know if it is the void, if it's a god of the void, if it's a monster from space. Is it a corrupted AI that just attained massive powers? We don't really know. We do not know. But we do know that it connected with Sin. Sin invited Absolute Solver into herself and thus was assimilated. And that Absolute Solver from there started being really creepy, started doing horrible things to N and V, and ended up instigating the event that destroyed planet Earth. From there, went around devouring other planets, basically chasing intelligent life, such as humanity, but even chasing the worker drones. And we just get this idea that this thing is just an all-consuming monstrosity. It just must always destroy and consume. And it's a little bit sadistic. It enjoys torturing its food. Absolute Solver enjoys being weird. Absolute Solver enjoys the trappings of witchcraft, of demonology. It enjoys the idea of ritual before it goes for the kill. Does any of that mean anything? We don't really know. Again, it's left a mystery. It's one of the things that makes Absolute Solver so creepy. And the more you think about it, the more horrifying it gets because of the implications. Which is why, despite the problems inherent in how Murder Drones ends, I will still defend that it is a well done Lovecraftian cosmic horror, because Liam stuck to his rules and to the rules of a cosmic horror. And how do you deal with it? Shay was right. You either have to use its own powers against it, or you have to devour its very core. Shade, all the powers of the Absolute Solver, the ability to move things with the cases, to create black holes and transform objects into flesh and machines, the ability to infect others and control them. Yeah, Absolute Solver's got so many abilities. It's such an overpowering evil to go up against, which again, very Lovecraftian. All right, so while it uses fleshy tendrils, I think it's an entity not originally an AI. And that's my personal feeling as well. I think that based on the fact that we see Absolute Solver assimilate qualities of all of its victims, that it assimilated the idea of AI, which is why we then see it utilize its powers in a very machine programmer-like way, even though when we get down to it, like creating flesh, controlling of the elements, creating black holes, those are things that are not robot related. And so it's another element of what is this thing? What is this thing? But it liked the qualities of the drones. It liked what it had with Sin. And as we see, especially here with this picture, it liked Tessa. So it assimilated Tessa. Oh, my poor Aussie girl. You'll be missed. Fabio, from how the story went, my mind went, humans made something they can't control. Figures when you somehow use a synthesized black hole as a battery in a bot. Fabio, the null in the black hole really convinced me that at least that part is digital. Interesting. Because I would argue that it's definitely not digital, but that the way, again, that the powers manifest themselves are digital because that's the quality of Sin that Absolute Solver had absorbed into itself. Because, again, how do you program a black hole? How do robots create a black hole? Especially one that fast. In order to create a black hole, you have to have a blast of energy that is able to collapse back in on itself fast enough to create enough mass that you then get an unstoppable cycle where it just continues to devour and absorb and sucks everything into it, creating an ever greater, denser mass that just continues to consume. Interestingly, if you want to get into a little bit of philosophy within the physics, interestingly enough, in order to create a black hole is the same way in which the universe creates life. Life cannot exist without a star dying. The star must blow up in a supernova-like explosion in order to scatter all the building blocks of life across the universe. And the effects of gravity allow that material to combine itself together to create new stars and planets and systems. That same exact explosion can, if the elements are just right, cause that life-giving explosion to suck everything back together and create something that can only then take and destroy. So, something interesting to consider. Excuse me. Shade says, I mean, a supernatural session. It just says AI like demons. I liked N2, the only personality we know. It liked N2, the only personality we know she liked. Yes, Absolute Solver loved having N again and again and again, cloning him again and again and again. Oh, that poor guy. Shade. I mean, it's kind of similar to a vampire. I see a lot of fan fiction where they change forms of vampires. The Absolute Solver, the head vampire. How could you tell me what to think? Could you tell me what you think with this idea? Well, I remember way back in the day when Murder Drones was just getting started with episodes 1 and 2. Before we had episode 3 come onto the scene with the prompting really changed the way that a lot of fans saw the show. Even though there were still some vampire elements within episode 3, it began to die down. But for episodes 1 and 2, a lot of people saw the Murder Drones as just vampires. These were vampires made to kill other drones in a very vampire way. And so I don't see anything wrong with that. There's a lot of vampiric qualities to the drones throughout the series. And it's something that Liam himself said, like, yeah, I kind of dropped that along the way, which I think is a real shame. He should have really kept and leaned into the vampiric element of the Murder Drones throughout the story. That's my belief. It's that first time Roberts and supernatural power came together. I mean, in Fate, we see AI with the power of the Holy Grail. Fabio, definitely agree with the entity part, but would integrate it into my humans messed with incomprehensible belief, like the entity assimilated things into itself. And Mimic is here. Great to have you back, Mimic. Yeah, I think the Absolute Solver entity might have come from a deep, dark part of space or something. It can create a black hole, and there are black holes in space. Yeah, either it came from some deep, horrible portion of space. Maybe it came from a black hole, which is a very Lovecraftian, horrifying thing. Like, if you could tell, like, Lovecraft probably never knew that black holes existed. If you could tell Lovecraft that a black hole was a real thing and how it worked, Lovecraft would have freaked out. He would have overthrown his table. He would have kicked you out of his house. So that way, for the next month, he could write a novella based on whatever he believed was inside of a black hole that was one day going to come and wipe out humanity. That is exactly what he would have done, and it probably would have also been very racist because, yeah, Lovecraft. All right, so we have our potential origins. We don't know the origins of Absolute Solver. It's a mystery, and it's okay that it's a mystery because that's how a Lovecraftian horror story acts. It doesn't give you all the information. Liam, even though he probably would say that he doesn't have an answer, I guarantee Liam has an answer. Liam knows where Absolute Solver came from. He knows what it is. But we know its driving desire to consume and to destroy. We know its modus operandi, and we know how to deal with it. That allows us to understand the rules by which the story goes. Now then, there are definitely some little plot holes here and there. There's some things that don't quite make sense, especially when we consider that we don't really see Uzi ever practice with her Absolute Solver powers. So the ending in that regard feels a little bit unearned. So, like, Uzi, where did you get all these abilities? Tell me where. When did you practice? But that aside, the rules are set. All right, so, and then we could have named it Dalropolothanite. I completely botched that. Dal for short. Fabio, if it using sin even leans into using a form that your mind can comprehend thing. Using sin even leans into the using a form that your mind can comprehend thing. Okay, yeah. I love Lovecraftian horror. Like, if I'm going to deal with you people, I'm going to assume a form that makes sense, that can interact with you. Higher dimension coming down to a lower one, which is itself a source of a lot of horror stories. All right. Now then, time to do research. So, this is where we're going to put this all into practice. Now then, I want you guys to choose a monster. One that you've made up, or one that you might want to use that someone else has already made. And I want you to consider its origins, its driving desires, its modus operandi, and how people deal with it. And then share that in the chat. If you come across, if you have an idea for a creature that you know other people have come up with, but you're like, where do I begin? We can then already start doing the research together. I've got it set up so that way we can then ask the all-knowing Google, and I'll show you guys, because I'm a researcher. I've done loads of research, how you can go about finding information that will be very useful to you. All right, so you weren't supposed to pronounce it right. Lovecraft names. Yeah, who knows? Who knows how you're supposed to pronounce anything that H.P. Lovecraft came up with? Yikes, like Cthulhu. The Ice Bunny. The Ice Bunny. Okay. Well, let's see what kind of crazy things you guys can come up with. Let's see what kinds of stuff you can give me for the origins, driving desires, modus operandi, and how people deal with it for the Ice Bunny. Star Drop Mellow. I will also participate with you guys here in the chat, and I'll share with you all one of the monsters that I created for a previous Choose Your Own Horror Adventure story. In fact, for actually 2 of them that I've done in the past. This is a creature that is simply called the Conglomerates. So it's origins, it's driving desires, it's modus operandi, and how to deal with it. Star Drop Mellow, sorry, I just like cute creatures that can be dangerous and powerful. All right, well, let's see what you could do with that, Star Drop Mellow. ISO, choose a monster, Apophis. All right, so let's see what you got for Apophis. Now, also, the murder drones having angel wings really reminds me of the Nephilim or fallen angels from the Book of Enoch. That does indeed have that quality. I'm Omega, dash. So demons from Demon Slayer. The origins: a sick human drink a medicine from a specific flower, and he became a demon. After that, he infected others and tried to find the flower. And all right, so we're going with Muzan. Powers higher regeneration depending on the demon that they can gain their own special superpower. Now then, we'll talk about that there more in a little bit. Also, I do need to come back to, I said, to put a pin in the whole question of how do you create a psychological monster. We'll talk about that here. Original monster, Candleman. Origin, butler to an early 20th century aristocratic family. Burned in a fire, driving desire, vengeance. Modus operandi, candle fingers. Weakness, water. Okay, I want to go, Dorcas Daydreams. I want to know more about candle fingers. How does that work into its modus operandi? How it does what it does, and so forth. So for the conglomerates, this monster is born from an amalgamation of all the nightmares and fears of various cultures in the U.S. Those feelings were so real that they came to life and merged into one creature. Usually resembles machinery, like the factories. The immigrants were forced to work in. So there you have. So Star Drop Mellow origin. I made it up. I don't know her backstory. Well, that's the fun, Star Drop Mellow. You get to come up with the origins. Dark Stage Room says I made Candleman when I was 7, by the way. Well, it has stuck with you. Say again, elaborate a little bit more. There's something interesting you could do there with that. Now then, its driving desires for the conglomerate: eat people, grow bigger, survive through consumption. It's just a horrible, ever-consuming animal. Dorcas, when he burned, his body melted into the candles that started the fire, and he basically looks like a human chandelier. So basically the horror version of Lumiere from Beauty and the Beast. Now then, my conglomerate's modus operandi is that it blends into the environment and chooses locations where people feel their dreams have died. It likes depressing places. And it camouflages. Ooh, I always spelled camouflages wrong. Camouflages itself to become part of the surroundings so it can more easily trap and kill its victims. So this thing is very much animalistic. When you would see it, it would look more like a machine come to life. Think xenomorph, but like way more robotic, but also eerily fleshy somehow. And I can also add in that you would actually see its more recent victims merged into its carapace, its outer carapace as well. So you'd see potentially dozens, if not scores or hundreds of people that this thing has eaten, depending on how old it is. Now, how do you deal with it? How do you deal with a conglomerate? Easy. You have to kill it like a wild animal. Take out its head or its heart. Oh, YouTube has rejected it. They think it's spam because I put in the word kill. Well, there you have it. Any case. So you can unalive it. Stupid YouTube. Any case there. So Fabi says, I've got another. Well, fantastic. So Stardrop Mel says, driving desires to kill her victims with the frozen kiss of death. Also brainwash them. So it likes to kill people and likes to brainwash them. That's a cruel little rabbit. Let's see here. Darkest J Dream says, yeah, it sounds about right, Fabio. Okay, I was doing it too early then. LOL. I have another. Well, fantastic. Give me another. Give me more. Jay continues, demons from Demon Slayer, the origins of sick human. Okay, powers of higher regeneration. Depending on the demon, they can gain their own special superpower. So we know that Muzan, the reason why his modus operandi his modus operandi includes two primary things. One is that he has to kill humans in order to subsist because he's a monster that takes life. Second, he creates more demons in order to find ones powerful enough to help keep him alive long enough because he's afraid of being killed by the demon slayers, but also to have an army that's able then to scour the land to find the special flower that he needs in order to, suppose if it exists, to create the serum that will allow him to live during the daytime, because that's his big weakness. And if possible, if one of those demons should become powerful enough to resist sunlight, Muzan can then absorb that demon into himself and thereby also claim that power. So those are, because Muzan wants to live forever, but he does have certain weaknesses, he creates all these other demons in order to protect himself, but also find what he needs in order to create the perfect scenario for him to enjoy his ill-gotten and depraved immortality. Stardrop Mel for the Ice Bunny. Modus operandi, they live in the cold lakes and ponds. Nick says, wow, great monster, Mr. Lars. Awesome monsters, everyone. I'm definitely getting into the spooky vibe even more. Fantastic. It's what we want because it's spooky season. Let's get into it. Fabio doesn't think it's spam, just randomly thought it's too brutal, even though I can say kills right now. I know, it's so weird. Star Trek Mel, the rabbit is more humanoid and have a very goddess. Interesting. Omega. The one of 1,000 faces, a being hidden in the minds of amnesiac people within a certain city, desire to be eventually awoken from its slumber and reform in the real world to take it. Oh, cool stuff. Cool stuff. And have a very goddess appearance. Okay. So this ice bunny is very alluring. Dorcas Stateroom says, can I share another one? It's based on an existing monster, but it's technically not that monster, even though it's labeled as such. By all means, Dorcas Daydreams, by all means. Fabio, 1, died as a teen when he wandered out into the forest, even if his battered body got to hug his parents one last time. His spirit possessed the entire forest. 2, be left alone. He feels thoroughly confused. Starter Mellow, how people deal with it, that's the fun part. You don't. So you don't, you could avoid the frozen forests and lakes. Maybe that keeps the ice bunny away from you, or at least keeps yourself away from the ice bunny. Because there are certain monsters for which we don't have a way to beat them. Like, not all monsters can be defeated. Some monsters you just leave alone. That's very Lovecraftian, for instance. Origins of Apophis. He is a primordial dark entity that existed before the sun. There's his origins. I'm Omega. For its people, MO is to wait for a person within said city to regain their original memories, to take over their mind after they awaken. Okay, Star Mel says she's basically a Western version of a Japanese yokai. For the ice bunny. Very good. So let's see here. As you guys are sharing more with me, let me finally get around. I'm pretty certain that Stormcrow has already gone to bed because he's in a completely different time zone. But so thinking about a psychological monster. A psychological monster can take on really all different kinds of forms. It doesn't need to be something overly big and intimidating, and it doesn't need to be something like weak and weird either, where it just completely relies on its ability to break its victims' minds. It can come in all different kinds of shapes and sizes. But if I were to make a psychological monster, how you make that really work is that, again, so I got to come back to its origins. What makes a creature or a person come after the minds of others? What kind of fear is that rooted in? And so let's say maybe because thanks to I'm Omega bringing up the idea of bringing up amnesia. What if you had a monster that is based on your fear? Is based on the fear of, what if you have false memories? Kind of thing like a false Hydra. So you've got a creature that exists within memories that may or may not be real. You don't know exactly what this creature looks like, but you have memories that no one else has. But your memories are so real, and they can either be beautiful or they can be harrowing. And the problem is that no one else has those shared memories. So you go looking because it makes you feel mad. It makes you feel like you've lost your grip on reality. That these memories, and you don't know these memories are attached to a creature or something. These memories are just these memories are just haunting you, even if they're good ones, just because no one else has them. Where on earth did they come from? So as you go looking for other people who've had the same experience, you come to find out similarities between different people who have these false memories. And then as you then begin to kind of Venn diagram, you're like, okay, so what's the commonalities maybe between us that got us to get these false memories? And And this is obviously a little bit of a slow burn, but the horror behind this, again, is that imagine, like, if you have memories that no one else has, people are going to think you're kind of crazy. When you begin finding other people who have the same exact experience as you, people are going to say, you're definitely crazy and you're hanging out with the crazies. Stop hanging out with the crazies, Lars. That's the wrong thing to do. Your enemy, first and foremost, becomes the outside world because it tells you that you're wrong. And so you begin to feel isolated, which can then lead to dependency issues, to paranoia, and other like things, which break down your sanity. And so much so then that as you then try to figure out how you got these false memories, you're actually more prone to believe crazy things that might lead you then to do stupid stuff or lead you right into the jaws of this monster. That's what it really wants. It chose its victims because it realized that this victim would be curious enough to come seeking. And so this creature doesn't even have to go anywhere. It lures its food to it by capitalizing in the most pernicious way possible upon a person's natural curiosity and the fear that they might be going insane. A good psychological monster is one that you don't really ever see. If you do see it, and I think that this is where A Woman in Black, for instance, is a great example. If you are meant to see the monster that's playing around with your mind earlier on, you need to bombard the audience with either direct visions of that creature, direct encounters, or encounters that seem like they might be the monster, but then that they aren't, to get you wondering what is real, what isn't real, when is the monster there, when is it not, until the point comes where you're seeing the monster everywhere. And then you don't know until it's too late that the monster has closed in and is there to catch you. A psychological monster makes you question if what you're experiencing is real. And it drives you mad. And it drives you mad not by forcibly making you insane, but by making you do things that make you begin to question your sanity, or that cause other people to question your sanity, which then starts driving you nutty. That is, I think, the best approach to creating a good psychological monster. Now, with that being said, let me quickly catch up with some of the other stuff that you guys have written. So, driving desire. Apophis hates Ra for creating the sun, so he wants to eat Ra and eat the sun and restore the darkness. So Fabio, continuing on with his list right here. Number 3, with his control over anything underground, all plant life, limited control. This is the guy who came to possess the entire forest, as well as the perception of whoever enters the forest. There are various ways one can eventually die through mysterious phenomena surrounds the entire forest. Some things there help outsiders, being outside of his control. I'm Omega. The way to beat this monster is to disconnect the awoken from the Uatsfs entirely. Often it involves throwing hands with the entity and hitting it in its host's body really, really hard. So snapping it out snapping it out of its trance or its state through trauma. Modus operandi. Every night it attacks Ra in the world to erase the sun. In the underworld to erase the sun. I get that right. In the underworld. Darkest Daydreams. Monster. Vampire. Origin. Human mutated after being bitten by a bat. Infected with a newly discovered disease. Desire is survival. Modus operandi. Following a specific diet. Weakness. Fluid loss. Interesting. And that can work for a good vampire. That's kind of the route that the animated cartoon series for Spider-Man in the late 90s took with what's his bucket? Morbin. It's Morbin time. Whatever his bucket is. The vampire dude. Morbius. There's his name. Morbius. That's basically the route that the 90s cartoon for Spider-Man took Morbius. And it works. It's good. So good job right there, Dorcas. So how to deal with it. Apophis is a primordial dark entity. Ra kills Apophis every night to protect his trek across the sky, but he can never be killed forever. He revives every night and attacks. So it's kind of, once again, one of those unrelenting evils, which is why you need a guy like Ra to keep things moving. Mimic, a scary monster that toys with your false memory, OCD, the worst kind of all. Fabio, 4. Set his mind straight. He cannot speak anymore. No great control over the human mind. The best he's done is growing a tree sculpture based on his teenage body. Ooh, that's cool. I like that. But through this, he can listen, like how it's believed you can calm down a distressed plant. Through everything he's done, he didn't want anyone to truly die. But how the hell do you process having control over an entire forest? You can't talk to anyone. He needs to be comforted somehow. Ooh, I really like where you're going with that, Fabio. That's a really cool idea. One of my monsters is a sadistic psychic shapeshifter. I'm sure you could guess what it does. Ah, yes. And I'm immediately getting envy vibes from Full Metal Alchemist. Mimic, yo, Mr. Lars, that's actually kind of hitting hard. I feel like I was a victim of this monster recently, but I was able to get proper help before things got worse. Brilliant monster, Lars. Well, Mimic, I'm glad that you were able to get your way through that encounter with this particular monster in your own real life situation. And it's one of the things that makes a good psychological monster hit hard, is that it feels like it's real. It feels like something that anyone could go through. Maybe even you yourself kind of felt like you went through that. As someone who has had family members who've had dementia, and also finding out that a friend of mine has been diagnosed with early onset dementia, like I can imagine just that fear of, are these things I'm remembering? Is this right? And it puts a massive mental toll onto the person. I think one of the things that a horror story with a psychological monster can provide to the audience is a sense of catharsis. That while we know that people who go through these things, there's unfortunately no miraculous cure for people who have dementia, but you want to be able to see that someone can realize when something is false and what is real, and that the fight to maintain your sanity is something worth making. And that's the catharsis that the audience should feel with a creature like that there is hope, or that there's a reason to resist, and that reality is preferable over the daydream. Because as fantastic as some daydreams are, as fantastic as some alternate realities are, the underlying message for anyone who's ever dived into that, because at the end of the day, anyone who has dived into that kind of a world never feels fully fulfilled. It's one of the beautiful things about the story of Ready Player One. Reality is the only place where you can get a decent meal. And that's true. And not just literally a decent meal, but reality is where you end up being most fulfilled. I'm someone who has written multiple books. I have lived, at this point, years worth in fantasy worlds in my own head. And while all of that is fun, none of that has been as fulfilling and enduring as making real memories with real people, doing real things, improving myself in reality, and feeling good about my accomplishments. That is the decent meal of reality. Morbius is a Spider-Man villain? Yes, he is, Dorcas. Yes, he is. Oh, man. Oh, what's been done? What Sony has done to the Spider-Man universe? Omega, more like reverse kicking the host out of the dead man. I like that. Star Drive Mellow. Wow. Shade. I remember a monster. I forgot the name, which attacked people. He shifted when he attacked people. He shifted in planned memories of him with them as the friend. But if you came with 3 people, he cannot change that. He cannot change that. He can put a memory of. He cannot change the number of people. Okay. Ooh. You know what, Shade? That sounds so familiar. Yeah, I don't recall that creature off the top of my head, but yeah. Ooh, I like that. If I had Dark Agents, yeah, the movie ones with Sony, the Amazing Spider-Man universe, ... But Sony insists on removing Spider-Man from the picture ever since their first Venom movie. Yeah. Shade says, Lars, I think people who enjoy going to another world would disagree with you. Many crying faces. I know people, the imagined world is better than the real world, which is the problem. That's the problem. That's the message of something like Ready Player One. Because in Ready Player One, the main character escapes into the fantasy world, into the video game world every single day because he's like, my life sucks. I don't have a girlfriend. My parents died. My aunt who takes care of me has an abusive boyfriend. She's a drug addict. And just all of these horrible things there in the other world where I can be whoever I want, however I want, and do whatever I want. That's life. And yet, the moment that he then meets someone who is real, that he wishes to get closer to, the game ceases to satisfy. The moment that he begins to realize that the game can be taken away from him by real outside forces, he has to get off his couch and actually begin to do stuff. The moment that he begins to realize that friendship is far deeper than just the facade that can be experienced online, he begins to realize the true value of friendship. Say, I get it. I've talked to so many people who want to just escape into a fantasy world. And I myself was once one of those kinds of people. But, like I said, the reality is that reality is the only place to get a decent meal. And I have dived into fantasy enough to know that. Believe you me. If I says, the whole story's going into another world is about escape reality, and it's very popular. I think people forgot the message. They did. Problem with too much isekai these days is that it's totally forgotten what the purpose of Portal Fantasy is. The purpose of Portal Fantasy is that the person who goes to the other world must go to the other world in order to have experiences that they could not have in this one, to become the person that they need to be. That is the purpose of a good Portal Fantasy story, to give them those experiences that allow them to grow. Too many, and that's one of the reasons why the power fantasy aspect that now comes far too often into isekai has robbed isekai of its ability to tell decent stories so many of the times, because it just all becomes about the powers. You just have the powers. Where's the lesson? The lesson is what matters the most in Portal Fantasy. Mimic says, people in Japan really know how to create their monsters too. They can literally make anything scary and horrifying. Oh yeah, no, they're pretty good at it. Fire says to Mimic, that especially makes me think of Junji Ito. Fire says, I don't think it's bad if someone goes to another world and doesn't want to go home. It's like immigrated to another country. Dorcas' Stage Room says, The Wizard of Oz is a Portal Fantasy. Yes, it is. The Wizard of Oz is a great Portal Fantasy. Of course, Chronicles of Narnia is one of the more popular and well-known ones. I am so sad that Beyonders is not a better known Portal Fantasy. So good. Such a good Portal Fantasy trilogy. Holy cow. And then there's the Five Kingdoms, not as good, done by the same author, Brandon Mole. And yeah. And here's actually another thing. Sword Art Online, as bad as the overall story is, and as much as Kirito is just a self-insert OP character who's just an edgelord, the thing is that what Kirito learns through his experience of being in the death game fits in really well with what a Portal Fantasy should be. The problem with Sword Art Online is that it very quickly forgot what it was meant to do, and then just became about acquiring the harem and doing epic things and being the best gamer that ever gamed, and thereby it totally lost its soul and became a stupid story. Jay says, what do you think about the idea of going to another world and going to another country? Do you agree with it or disagree? Depends on the story. can easily be that way. Some cases it's not. Darkest Daydream says, luckily we have SAO abridged. Yes. Thank goodness for the abridged series. They save certain shows like Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged. Oh my gosh, just genius. Meg says, Fabio, yes, Junji, is the king of creating original monsters too. His recent involvement with the newest Silent Hill F game was incredible. As someone who hasn't really played much Silent Hill, I really can't comment on it. However, I have some really good friends who are huge fans of Silent Hill, and they've taken me through one gameplay late at night. That was a spooky experience. In fact, actually, that will be one of the reasons why next week the live stream will be happening earlier in the week. We'll actually be next week doing the live stream on a Wednesday. The reason is that I've got a D&D game on Thursday. After that, I am going out of town for the weekend to celebrate one of those friends' birthday. We're going to be doing a horror movie marathon in the woods. It's going to be great. I've done this now for a few years. Always a lot of good spooky fun, which is why, again, next week's live stream will be on Wednesday night, and we will be tackling the topic of how to make the monster your protagonist. Fabio says, Junji even managed to make a joke story about how his girl is so much of a cat person and got him to be a cat person while keeping his horror art style. That's fantastic. Shade says, Silent Hill is the definition of psychological horror mixed with realism and mythology. Oh yeah, it definitely gets into your head. All right, so there you guys have it. You guys have gone over effective. Don't split when you go into the woods, Lars. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Whenever I've had to use a tree or a bush during one of those horror nights, it is one of the freakiest things. Especially because the last time I went up for it, was we were trying to find a good place to do the movie because the favorite spot had been taken over by some college kids, which they thankfully left, and so we were able to use the best spot. But so we went looking for another spot. We found out that there had been someone who had hung up a skinned deer along with some really weird iconography in the woods. That was freaky. We found an abandoned car. Really freaky. And there was also the place where a guy died. Really freaky. And so we're like, okay, well, yeah, these woods are already haunted. Shay says, I did not mean realism, I mean occultism. YouTube just stupid. Don't find a zombie bear in the woods, Lars. Oh yeah, for those of you if you guys have not been reading along for the Choose Your Own Horror Adventure story, the newest installment just went up today on our YouTube post. You can read it and you can vote for what should happen next. The undead bear is absolutely an issue. Fabio, one advanced AI left with abandoned funland without an animatronic body. Revenge against what is left. Animatronics there and the lost child protagonist who happened to be there. Well, that's freaky. I like it. So, but yeah. So let's see here. It's basically all I had planned for this evening. But just to recap, when talking about coming up with the rules, because you need to have rules for your monsters in order for people to engage, to make sense of what they're dealing with, to have that sense of hope and of fear and so forth. You need to understand the creature's origins, its driving desires, its modus operandi, and how people deal with it. Those four things allow you to craft the rules for how your monster will act, what will happen in your story. So that way, again, as people know the rules, as people begin to figure out this is what's going on, they can better understand the horror and they can truly feel why it is scary. So again, the rules need to be there. You don't always need to outright state them. It's often better to show them, especially for something like psychological horror or for dealing with something that is like ever present and trying to hunt you and kill you. It is far better to show the rules in action. By doing that, it sticks with the audience far, far better. So that is the lesson right there. Fabio says, number 3, possess the animatronics and other electronics around until everything is done. Possession of all the... that would be absolutely creepy. Imagine having Disneyland suddenly turned against you. I just watched a video today about people trying to pull King Arthur's sword out of the stone. Imagine if that sword suddenly just came out and started chasing you around. For something kart racing related gets the protagonist to get tips from the ghost children there that cryptically could at least get our main kid to survive. Say I get even though, as Shade said, this feels all like Five Nights at Freddy's. There's also, in what Fabio is saying right here, there is a hint of the Black Phone, which if you haven't seen Black Phone, that is a pretty good horror story right there. In that case, that's a story where the monster is a human, absolutely, but the ghosts of his victims provide a very, very interesting element to the whole story because it's also a survival story, as this kid victim is trying to figure out how he's going to get out of this basement that's been designed to keep a small guy like him in it and get rid of him for good. And so the ghosts show up, the ghosts give cryptic warnings and ideas and messages that the kid then has to piece it all together that allows him to finally escape from the basement and then have the showdown with the monstrous guy who kidnapped him and placed him down into the basement. Fabio says, this is from the Funland story of mine where I'm considering giving a good and bad ending to. And I remember you were talking about that earlier, Fabio. And yeah, run with this. It can be a lot of fun. I know some people will say, Five Nights at Freddy's, Five Nights at Freddy's. But here's the thing. This comes back around to a story that I know I've shared before, but I'll share it again. Having the chance to talk to Christopher Paolini, the guy who wrote The Inheritance Cycle or Eragon, I asked not just him, but a bunch of people at a panel at Phoenix Fan Fusion, the Phoenix version of Comic-Con, a question. So I want to write a story about dragons, but one of my friends says, don't bother with it. Everyone knows everything that can be done with dragons. So just don't waste your time with it, Lars. And he was the first person to answer. And he said, the response you should have to that is be arrogant and tell everyone, you haven't read my story yet. You haven't read my dragons. And so for instance, Fabio, when you get around to making this game, for those people who are like, well, this is just FNAF, what you should be like is like, FNAF is its game. You need to check out my game. You haven't yet experienced my robots. You haven't yet experienced my brand of horror. You haven't seen this ending yet. So give my game a chance. You do that, and I guarantee I'm going to take you on a very different ride. You're going to be thinking FNAF, but by the end, you're going to be thinking about my Funland. And that kind of approach to pitching your story to other people is important. A little bit of arrogance can go a long way. You shouldn't be totally arrogant and be like, yeah, I'm the best thing since sliced bread. But a little bit of arrogance saying, this is my story, and you're going to love it. That goes a long way to selling people on an idea that they didn't realize that they needed. Hold on a sec here. I got to bring a little kitty to the room. Get myself untangled. Ugh. Yes, Daisy? No, Daisy. Daisy has moved on. Shade says, Fabi, I love your idea. Just saying, remind me of something I love. No hate. No worries. No worries about there. Just again, because there will be those people who will be all like, this is just FNAF. But again, for any story that you are telling your own way, let people know. This is my story. This is my tale. Give it a try. Why, Lars? Why you put words in my mouth? Shade, you're just taking this a little too far right here. You didn't realize we just had a great moment to learn something. So learn. Sliced bread is overrated. Try eating it by the loaf. Oh, yes. Just tear that loaf apart. Nom, 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 nom. Mimic, you haven't experienced my trauma. Exactly. Especially with a horror story. And here's the thing. A lot of people say that horror is old, it's tired, can't do anything new. That's not true. Horror is one of the most inventive genres of all time. You see that in something like Murder Drones, The Amazing Digital Circus, to a certain extent, as well, Knights of Guinevere and the Gaslight District. Horror allows you to get creative, and you should be creative with your horror stories. Some of the stuff you guys have been pitching has been great. Some of the stuff you guys have referenced, like, for instance, ISO bringing up Apophis. Apophis. There we go. I'm just going to go run with that for right now. That might be an old horror story right there, but there's an inventiveness to it. Snake wants to devour the sun, devour the god who created the sun. I mean, how many times do you see that these days? You can do all different kinds of things within horror. But again, you just got to make sure that you nail down what the rules of your story are, the rules for your monster. Because once you have those rules down, it is so far that it's not to say so far. It's far easier to make sense of your story, both as the writer and as the audience. When people understand the rules, they understand the stakes, they understand what can be lost. And that's one of the things that helps to generate the fear. And when people know what can happen, then again, it helps to generate that fear. It's so let's hear. I know I'm beginning to ramble, but let me grab as an example the Scream franchise. So in Scream 1, they stuck very clearly to the rules of a good horror story. In Scream 2, they broke the rule that virgins don't die. Your virginity protects you from death in a horror movie. So the forever virgin gets killed in a van by the killer. When that happens, the interesting thing is that yes, it was being tongue-in-cheek, yes, it was being funny, but an interesting thing is that after that point, I stopped caring as much. And I just settled in for, this is going to be a hokey slasher. The fear that the first movie incited by you knew what the rules were. And when you saw the teenagers being stupid, you knew that something awful was going to happen. You're like, don't do the stupid thing. Don't do the stupid thing. But then in the second movie, when even people who are doing the right thing die, and it's a movie that's very strict, and even the second movie, it's like, we abide by the rules of horror. The moment that it broke its own rules, you're just there for the body counts. And that's one of the reasons why, Predator sticks to its rules. But in Predator, because by now it's given so much away, you watch a Predator movie for the body counts. Same thing with Alien movies. You're there for the body counts. Jay says, Scream is a matter. Horror story comment about slasher horror story. It is a commentary on other slasher movies. But the first movie was still a genuine horror story. Everything that followed afterwards, once they began breaking the rules, ceased to really be a good horror story. And it just became a very hokey commentary, one that fell into the very same trap that it was poking fun of. At which point then you could say, well, that fits that fits its purpose. But then Yeah, but then there's a reason why it's just a cult classic beyond beyond the first movie, and why it's not a franchise that people are just dying to have continue going forward. So something to consider. And horror, at least for me, is one of the easiest genres to dabble in and come up with stuff. Like, there's really no limits when it comes to horror. It's that great. Exactly. Then Iso says, "Oh, please, if you haven't seen a decayed woman head stuck on a mile-long spine with sentient hairs all along its body as a horror monster yet." It works in my story. Oh, yeah. Say, cat honey barged into the room again. This tank of a cat distracting me. But he says, somehow this seems to have come from witnessing a Bloodborne parody game that turns into a kart racer. So my mind made something sort of FNAF-like around a weird linear story kart racer. Now, there's something. Nightmare Kart. Ooh, yeah. Shade says, talk about yourself, Lars. I want more Scream. Yeah, go ahead. You can enjoy the hokey Scream. I believe that they just released a new movie, a year ago? So go on ahead and enjoy. For me, I'll just be sitting around laughing at the second Friday the 13th. Oh, my gosh. Friday the 13th. Horror allows you to be at your most unhinged. That and Twitter. Oh, yikes. Yeah, I'd rather live in a horror movie than live on Twitter. Thank you very much. Fabio says, maybe the name, I know that it put a bunch of legal distinct names for all the characters. Legally distinct names for all the characters. Legally distinct. Yes, I own that name. No one else can have that name. Until everyone starts coming up with other bad spellings for that character's name and starts naming their second and third son and daughter after it. All right. So, to round off the night, again, remind you guys that next week's live stream will be on Wednesday. There will be another live stream, however, this week on Saturday. If you want to, you can join me and Scott and some of our friends for a one-shot. And we're going to be doing a special D&D-like one-shot that will be a horror story. So come for more spooky stuff. And my hope is, for one thing, just to have a good time doing it on Saturday, but also to help to illustrate something that I've talked about in previous videos about how role-playing games are a great way to learn how to improve elements of your writing or how to put ideas that you have into practice. And so I hope to show that through this role-playing game, and you guys can watch it, you can enjoy it. Maybe it'll give you some ideas for your own role-playing games if you want to try it out, or to take some of your own stories and adapt them through a very easy system that I've created. I'll explain it and also have just the basic outline for it in the description for that live stream. But yeah, role-playing your story is a great way to learn more about what you might want to do with that world or with some of the characters. One shot, a manga? Oh, I wish I was a good enough of an artist, or that I had a good enough of an artist that I could work with full time to make some of my stuff come to life, like with a manga or with a comic book. That would be fantastic. I already know what two stories I'd be working on doing that: Misventures and Steel Bullets. That would absolutely be what I would do. But no, this will be a role playing game. I role play my characters all the time. Well, fantastic. Interesting thing about doing a role-playing game is that it's a shared storytelling experience. So other people bring their insights and their interactions to your characters and to your world, or they bring their own characters into your world, and it allows you to engage in a very fantastic and organic way that brings a lot of inspiration and a lot of insights. Lars, you are worse than Reverse Flash. You are the true hater. What did I do to you? Anyways, so with all that then being said, hope you guys will show up on Saturday. If you don't, it'll at least be around, so that way you guys can go back and enjoy the shenaniganery between 5 of us playing in a horror story that I've created. Next live stream with a writing lesson will be on Wednesday. And yeah, so with those announcements and a description out of the way, I think that we will wrap up there. Nick says, this was an incredible and spooky stream today, Mr. Lars. I'm glad I tuned in today, and it's nice to be back from the dead for once. Keep it up, Mr. Lars. Happy spooky season. And a happy spooky season to you as well, Mimic. Thank you so much. Fabi says, and I want a VA, so many of them, which also makes me not know which ones I want others to voice other than female characters. Yes, because female characters for a guy can be very difficult. Shade says, wow, people talk about having friends. Yes, because friends are great. Again, reality. and real friendship. So, everyone, thank you so much for being here with me tonight for this writing lesson about how to write monsters. And next week, we will be talking about making your monsters protagonists. When you want to go that route, that should be a whole lot of fun. And if you want to see another horror story, man, I just keep on dropping references right here. If you want to see one play out, and if you want to be a part of making a horror story today, please go to the community post on our channel and check out the Choose Your Own Horror Story that I've been posting. Read it, make your selection, choose what's going to happen to this gang of 16s in the woods with an undead bear. And man, the chapter that I just dropped today for everyone to read and to vote on, a change has occurred within the story. We'll see what you guys think of it going forward. So with that being said, again, everyone, thank you so much for being here. Shay wants me to go check out Liam's previous stories. I will try. I still am committed, though, to also making my way through No Evil. I am moving way too slowly on that. But I shall finish it eventually. So, again, thank you, everyone, for being here. And until the next video, y'all, I say, tschüss.